The Man in Line with Andy Wint.
Faster Mike, good afternoon. Welcome to Man in Line on Max Radio. Open line through till 1, so whether it's a story of banning phones in schools or certainly phones that are switched on, apparently they have to turn them off. Who's going to check that, you wonder? Think it's a good idea? Are children living in a virtual world? Well, that and anything else could be the wind farm debate, could be assisted dying. Whatever's on your mind today, the floor's yours. And Doug's with us first of all today. Hi, Doug.
Hi there. Just two things, really. I watched a lot of the police programs, and I'm watching the police at the moment. This fella kicking this fella's head in.
Yeah.
What I would like to know, or people should like to know, it's all one-sided. What has he done to create that? These fellas we're raising today, they think they can do what the hell they want and get away with it. And it's not on. That's, to get back to the old days, like in my day, you just didn't do things like that,
Well, I think there was, from what I've heard, there was a risk, they said, of those people taking the firearms from those particular officers at the airport, I think it was. Well,
they shouldn't be doing that, should they? Where's the respect they've got, or we used to have, I can remember my days, we had a fellow called Hans Conrad. You may not have heard of him.
Oh, I've heard of his reputation.
He was stationed in Douglas. I'll tell you what, he always wore his cape round his shoulders. And my God, he gave one wrong look, and next thing that cape was around your neck. You didn't do it twice.
Right. And what else was on your mind?
The other thing you may be interested in.
Yeah.
This ship is in the bay.
Oh, the Viking.
Yeah, is she English or where from America?
No, I think it's the Viking cruise line, I think, that she is. It's let me see. It's certainly, I don't know whether she's English or not, but certainly the Viking cruise line. Why is that?
I'll tell you why. I've got some information here, and I've had it a while. I went down to Manx Radio to the place top of Collins Hill, the museum.
Yeah.
And it was quite a while ago, and I passed this information on. They never got back to me. Now, what it says on this is immigration of the people from the Isle of Man and impact on Cleveland area in America.
Oh, around Ohio.
Hey?
In Cleveland, Ohio, in America.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you bring the Americans in here, they may be interested because possibly some of their ancestors may have come from here.
Well, certainly around Ohio. But, I mean, Manx people have gone everywhere around the world, haven't they?
They were Mormons, they were. But this is a sheet of papers here all stuck together. And I find it very easy and to read. And I don't know, any of you fellas will have a look at it?
Certainly will. If you want to drop that in the post to us, certainly, Doug, we'll take a look at that.
Well, you see, so these people are coming from America to this country. Who knows? Some of their ancestors may have been from this country.
Especially if they're called quail. All right. Doug, we appreciate that. Thanks very much indeed. It's the Viking Sky that's in it this year, today in Douglas, from Viking Cruises, which I think Viking is a Swiss cruise line. It's interesting, as Switzerland has no coast, but never mind. But they do river cruises as well. So it's the Viking, the Viking river cruises that are advertised on TV. It's the same line, I think, anyway. And certainly the Viking Star. I must admit, yesterday I was in the sea terminal hearing lots American voices because we had the Azamara. The Azamara Quest was in yesterday. So very, very tanned Americans were walking around the sea terminal, buying lots of magazines, it has to be said. But thank you for that, Doug. Appreciate that. And certainly I know for a fact that Manx National Heritage's Ancestry Department, if you like, do a big service in giving people a lead, really, if they do have Manx ancestors and Manx relations. But appreciate that, Doug. Thanks for that. David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Randy. And I forgot to send you the Weeds Act form. But I just want to, and it clicks into where these ships are coming in now from all over the place, visiting the Isle of Man. Is our window, which our tidiness, compromised because we've got cushig and ragweed growing everywhere, and nobody seems to be doing nothing about it. So I went round a few places the other day there, as you do, and having a little look. Do you know the prison site there on Victoria Road there?
Yeah.
It's got a massive load of cushig grown there, which is not only poisonous to animals, poisonous to humans as well.
So are we supposed to cut it down if we see it?
By the 1st of August, if it's sitting on your land, this is the conundrum I've got, is now all this land is in the care of the DOI. So that's indirectly the minister, isn't it? The minister is the department.
Well, you would have thought so, yeah.
So it's all got to be cut down by the 1st of August. So if you look at some of the hedgerows we've got, today I believe they're closing the road on the mountain to cut the hedgerows for the TT course. But what about every other place? We've got cushig growing all over the place. And once that it's bright yellow at the minute and it's our national flower, but once it starts to seed, next year we'll have thousands of them. Never mind the other stuff that grows all over the place. So my concern is going to be is if the department land has got this cushig on it, who do we prosecute? Who's responsible? If the government are telling us landowners to cut the weeds and stuff and farmers and
this
stuff like that.
It's DEFRA that would prosecute, presumably, would it be?
No, the indication I got from this, being copied in on it, is from the Infrastructure Department.
So the Infrastructure Department would prosecute themselves?
Well, it'd be great, wouldn't it, be giving a summons to Mr. Krukle to cut the weeds because you fall foul of an act or law in the Isle of Man. It goes back to 1957 when they were saying the other day there some of the acts are old. There's a load of acts that are old. And the other conundrum I've got is now I love Jaffa cakes. I don't know. I'm going to test it out now. Should we be eating more cherry ones? I've had the cherry ones. I'm going to send you a packet and test it out.
Why cherry Jaffa cakes?
Because they taste better. I think they taste better. But it's only me, and I'm just wondering whether our team in Onken survives on Jaffa cakes, and I give them there all the time, and I just wondered whether they would like the cherry ones.
I wonder. All right, well, we'll see about that. Cherry Jaffa cakes. All right.
Yeah,
good to hear from you.
Don't forget the flag, fella. Yes. Did we ever give him anything? A tea towel?
Oh, the Switzerland. No? We should send him a Manx Radio mug, shouldn't we?
Well, if you get me the address of the ambassador, the Swedish ambassador, I'll write him a letter from me as a Manxman, and I'll include a packet of cherry Jaffa cakes. How's that?
Thanks for that. Good.
See you, boy. Bye.
All right, it's 12:15. The Viking Sky's been here before. I think she was here a couple of weeks ago from Viking Cruises. So if you're spotting anybody on the Viking Sky, then give them a wave and say hello. Maybe they're on a halfway horse tram today. You never know. Have a little bowl up the promenade and jump on the horse trams halfway up. Howard's on now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. Just to reiterate what David was saying, I'm old enough to remember that there used to be legislation, I don't know whether it's been repealed or otherwise, but at this time of year they were cutting down the ragwort, but they also used to have to go through the fields that were leaving fallow and cut the thistles down. This is the farming community. But they changed these rules willy-nilly, and as I've just said to Chris, it's possibly that the farmers are using a herbicide now instead of cutting them down. but they had to be cut down before, say, the beginning of August when they were starting to seed. They were flowering all summer, and then they would seed about this time of year. But what you got to also be careful of, and this is a word of warning to people who have these things grown in the garden, the ragwort, wear gloves if you're going to pull it out, because it is harmful to humans, especially while you've got children. It's even harmful, well, to animals, even when it's dry and goes into the likes of hay and whatnot. It can have a disastrous effect on horses, or cattle, etc. So if you got this yellow flower, it does look nice, and it's a national flower, no harm to it. But this is the policy now of the government and the corporation, is they're calling it rewilding now. The word neglect has been taken out of the dictionary, and they call it rewilding. There's an area there going up past the nunnery. They've cut the edges of it, which is sensible, and then the cowslip is all growing. You can see it's flowering now. And this, in essence, gives food for wildlife through the winter. It's one of these things where you're doing wrong for doing right. And if the food is not there for the animals in the winter, the seeds and various things like that, even as it decomposes, it has a food trail for various animals and places of shelter. But you've got to be sensible about it. Where the hedgerows are growing out into the road and places like that, that is where it becomes dangerous. And that's where the duty of care comes in.
So is it poisonous now then?
Oh yes, yeah. There's actually a little moth. It's cinnabar moth, and that lives on it. And I've seen these cinnabar moths when I've been up the obscura, strange enough, and they're brightly coloured, orange and black, and that warns predators that they are poisonous because they're eating the plant, and they will eat it. They will devour the lot. And if you look it up, cinnabar moth, it's black with a red outer edge to the wing, and they will devour the ragwort. And they have within their system a means of avoiding the toxic part of the plant. And this is why they're bright colours like that, so the birds, etc., will see that, and they know that you can't eat me, pal. And they will then hatch out into cinnabar moths. If you look it up on the internet, right, they're there, and they're all over the island. But it is poisonous, and as I've just said there now, if you got children, remove it. But when you're doing that, use gloves.
Okay, well, and also regarding children, obviously, if they grab hold of it, they don't want to be licking their fingers or anything like that, or eating with their fingers.
Like the giant hogweed, etc. We used to use the cowslip when we were children as pea shooters. But if you have the giant hogweed, if you do that, you then have serious burns around your lips and your mouth, especially if, say, with children using them as pea shooters.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Howard.
Take care. Bye now.
All right, 19 minutes past 12. Any thoughts on that? The fact that, I mean, I have to say, this is where we get a little embarrassed at Manx Radio, because next to us on the big hill, on some of our land, a steep hill, we're wilding. As Howard said, is that another word for neglect, or is it just scruffy? Anyway, we're wilding, and we've got some cushag on there, so do we have to get rid of it? It's weird, isn't it, that our national flower is poisonous. Anyway, I'll just move swiftly on. I've also been trying to track down Nigel Dean. I don't know whether anybody in there... Nigel Dean, everybody remember him as an absolutely top cyclist throughout the 1970s. He also worked on, I think it was either the Green Final or the Alaban Times, and then moved to Fleet Street for a while. He was sub-editor of the Cyclist magazine, and we're trying to find where Nigel is nowadays. He was, I think, in Zimbabwe a few years ago, but Nigel Dean, top cyclist as well. It's I was talking to a pal of mine who's been a journalist for, I think, 50-odd years now. His first job was at the Southport Visitor, and he interviewed Nigel Dean on the first week that he was a journalist. I was very proud of the fact he was interviewing a Manxman. Anyway, if anybody knows where Nigel Dean is, we'd love to hear and find out what Nigel's up to these days. Should children be allowed to use mobile phones when they're in school? St Ninians is going to be restricting their use when school returns in September. The move has caused a stir. Some parents are praising the move, others raise concerns. Well, Chris Gregory runs Isle of Play, the Manx charity, and he said he believes that mobile phones can have a significant impact on children's development. What do you think?
If we direct the conversation towards mental health, and we're saying that children's mental health is at an all-time low, we're in the middle of a mental health crisis. Well, why is that? What are the factors that have made this crisis arise? That seems to be stemming from a lack of children's freedom. Look at it from a couple of points of view. We've got one that as long as a child has a smartphone on their person, the parent always knows where that child is and can access that child. Then we've got the child's addiction to the mobile device. So children are now so hooked on their phones that even when they're not on them, a lot of children are thinking about them. They're thinking about the conversations that are going on there. That means that the child is not living in the present, they are living in a virtual world that is not real. So children are not in touch with each other, they're in touch with each other's phones. And that is a real issue. And I think that's why sort of the move that St Ninians have taken in terms of banning the phones is a real positive. But it only addresses part of the issue. The other part of the issue is that children's freedoms have diminished significantly. And when you diminish their freedoms, you're diminishing their ability to become competent individuals in the society that they are living. And what does that look like? Well, typically that has always looked like play. So what we need to be doing really is limiting access to phones, but also looking at the other factors that are preventing children from playing outside and developing the resilience that they need to combat the mental health issues that we are currently seeing.
And why is play so important to that? What kind of skills does it teach children just from playing?
It can seem like a complete waste of time, and it's very hard in a culture where we're so obsessed with outcomes and looking at what the outcomes are. But with play, we don't know what the outcomes are before they've actually played, and even then the outcomes are so deferred that we don't necessarily see it. But what we do know is that play helps children become more socially competent. It helps them to navigate risk better. It helps them become more resilient. And there's nothing else that we can do as adults that is as powerful as developing and shaping the brain as play. Climbing a tree without a harness on their own terms is one of the most powerful lessons that a child can have in terms of developing resilience, in terms of lessons of risk and reward. And it's only by doing it freely that those rewards can ever be taken. It cannot be given by just subscribing it to a child.
Chris Gregory, that is, from Isle of Play. I wonder what you think where that's concerned. A very powerful case he puts forward. Who's going to be strong enough to ban phones, do you think, in schools? Who is going to tell children, young people, that they can't use a mobile phone in school, particularly as they're urged to use the internet here, there and everywhere? I've got to say thank you very much indeed to my WhatsApp friend 692, who actually sent me the names of the people who and the date that the trees on Pill Road were actually planted at Portashee Meadows that people are saying that need some attention. They've sent me the programme for the Silver Jubilee for His Majesty King George V and an avenue of lime trees planted at Portashee, Isle of Man in 1936. This is fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for the photos of the programme for what was a very, very big day. I appreciate that. Good to hear from you. Wilf's on now. Hi, Wilf. Hello, Wilf. We'll try and find Wilf in a few moments' time.
The only radio station that's Manx, and we're proud of it. Celebrating 60 years, this is Manx Radio.
Heating oil for homes, powering farms and businesses, keeping you moving with petrol stations across the island. Ellen Vannin Fuels. Call us on 844000.
At Thrive Farms, we have a passion for growing and providing fresh local food for the Manx community. As a not-for-profit, community-run business, we need volunteers. There are many opportunities to learn how to grow, harvest and more. Exchange your time for food and community. See Facebook or visit thrivefarmsiom.com for details. Thrive Farms. Our community. Our soil. Our legacy. This audio has been kindly sponsored by Miller Chaps of Ramsey.
It's time to start enjoying the garden. And from barbecues to garden furniture and machinery, tools and plants, Riley's Garden Centre has everything you need. Call Road Braddon and rileys.co.im or follow them on Facebook or Instagram.
Waltons have hundreds of TVs in stock ready to go, from Samsung to LG, here on the island. Plus, a large range of main appliances in stock, including fridge freezers, washing machines, and everything your home will need from all the top brands like Smeg, Samsung and Hotpoint. With special offers throughout the store and delivery and installation available, check out Waltons on Facebook or waltons.im. Or, even better, visit Waltons in Isle of Man Business Park, opposite Robinson's, for great prices and great service.
It's what Ravens fans have all been waiting for. The NWCFL Premier Division is back, and FC Isle of Man will get their new season underway on home soil this weekend. Paul Jones' side will face Chadderton at the Bowl this Saturday, with both teams hoping to make the best possible start to their latest campaigns. Join me, Rob Pritchard and Tony Mepham for FC Isle of Man versus Chadderton, kicking off at 6 p.m. this Saturday. Manx Radio will be providing full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels. Live coverage of FC Isle of Man on Manx Radio is supported by Selton, investing in our community.
The Man in Line with Andy Wint.
27 minutes past 12. Ian dropped a note in just to say a statement made in Tynwald the other day said because the British energy costs 4.5 times greater than China and 3 times greater than India. I wonder what the Isle of Man's cost is for energy production. We are worshipping the false idol of net zero, says Ian. I say, what's going to happen? We need to look to the world stage, apparently. No to net zero, says Ian. Any thoughts on this? And any thoughts, by the way, lots of feedback on what Dave Quirk had to say last week. If you've got any thoughts, by all means get in touch. Howard's back. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Andy. Just in reply to your question about Nigel Dean, I rang son-in-law, who's Steve Jochen. That's he's a professional cyclist, the Pocket Rocket.
Oh, right, yeah.
And that was about Nigel. And Nigel has retired at Dandaro Retirement Village in Zimbabwe. And he retired on the 3rd of February 2017 and at present. And it's a little bit here, trying to get the better of golf, much more difficult than professional cycling.
So how did Nigel Dean end up in Zimbabwe?
I don't know, but he was travelling the world and cycling the world, so it's possible that was one place that liked him, he liked particularly. But as I say, I just rang Steve. They're actually on their way to the island now because there is the Gran Fondo, as they call it. Right. A fairly large cycling event on this weekend.
Yes, there is.
And Steve and our grandson Ben, they're on the way over on the boat. I remember Nigel, and this is where he is. It says, 2017 he retired, retirement village in Zimbabwe to the present time. So he's very much, still about.
Good. So he must be in, his mid-70s, something like that?
I should imagine so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's the latest I got, and that's just this minute come through from Steve.
Okay, appreciate that. Thanks, Howard.
No trouble. Bye now.
Good to hear from you. A big name in cycling on the Isle of Man, Howard Dean. And let's have a look. A message in from £2 million, says Bill, to complete the horse tramway, according to the minister. Seems strange. There was a project that DOI overspent by $2 million that needed the money from the tramway. So what was the project? Maybe we need to find a sponsor to complete this, like a gambling company or even perhaps the Peel Group. And that section to be named after them, says Bill. Bill, there's a job for you then. You can become the project organiser and take a cut of the sponsorship. Let's sort of that out then. Get to a gambling company or perhaps the Peel Group. I think we found Wilf. Hi, Wilf.
Hiya. It's just a short one. Cushigs and thistles.
Yeah.
Now, when I was working on the highway board, donkeys years ago, I would be the lorry driver, and we used to have a whole gang picked up from the north all over the place. and they get their sickles, forks, and sharpening stones, whatever, and we go and do the roadsides all around the north. And they had to knock the tops off thistles and cushigs, and then they would load up on the wagon, huge load, and I'd have to take them to whatever tip they were going to put them on. And it's just amusing to me, put it that way. There was a particular, what we would call efficient, nasty policeman who used to ride a motorbike in Ramsey. I will not name him because there's a lot of people in Ramsey will remember him. He's dead and gone now. But he used to stand on the footrests looking over the hedges to see thistles and cushigs on farmland. And then he would nail the farmers. But one day he wasn't quite looking where he was going. He hit the hedge and he fell off.
Crikey.
And he broke his leg.
Oh, no.
So he was out of action for months, and everybody was delighted. Just my sense of humour. You know what I mean?
It's said with love. Thanks, Wilf.
That's it, right.
Good to hear from you. Thanks for that. A quick message in. I had a couple of calls yesterday, one in particular from Angela, who wants to warn everybody about the fact she's got an Amazon Prime membership, and she said apparently she's had emails basically offering all sorts of things. You'll be basically being asked to watch out for Amazon scams. They reckon well over 1,000 Amazon scams per month. This is around the British Isles, so commensurately here, and 5,800 around the world per year. Prime membership scams basically are unexpected telephone calls, texts or emails that refer to a costly membership. They'll prompt a fee or issue you with your membership and ask you to confirm or cancel the charge. So do watch out for that. If you are an Amazon Prime customer, watch out. The scammers are out at the moment for Amazon Prime membership, and do be aware of it. The aim basically is to convince you to provide payment or bank account information to reinstate your membership. It may just say, your Amazon Prime has been suspended or it's been deleted. It could be a text, an email, maybe even a phone call, just to say that your Amazon Prime's been suspended or deleted. And they'll say, can you provide information to verify your account? Don't do it at all. If you land on the page or you receive phone calls, you could end up spending hundreds of pounds. So to avoid being a victim of any of the scams, always ensure to verify any communications claiming to be from Amazon. Check the sender's email address or phone number. Amazon will typically use emails that end in @amazon.com. Anything else is a scam. So thank you, Angela, who prompted that yesterday. Appreciate the lead on that. Well done, Daphne Kane, says Stephen, for banning smartphones in schools. I don't agree with Daphne on some issues, but this is a great move and a big relief to parents of school children, says Stephen. A note in from 961 just said, I was listening to Man in Line yesterday. I'm afraid Eddie's wrong about Australia turning their backs on wind turbines. Australia has been using wind turbine technology for over 200 years. Back then, they were called windmills. They're not turning their backs on wind energy, says Texter 961, because it works. A quick word also about this weekend. Beach Buddies are at the Southern Agricultural Show. It's the Southern in Ballasalla at the Kermodes Farm, Southern Agricultural Show, and the Beach Buddies are going to be there. They have a stand at the top end of the show field, so go along and say hello. And there's a quick clean-up. They're doing the clean-up of the end of the day on Saturday, and then a big clean-up on Sunday. If you want to help, just pitch up there, and they'd love to see you cleaning up at the Southern Agricultural Show. And Manx Radio is going to be there as well, so go and say hello. I have heard many times argue eloquently and passionately on Man in Line for both sides of the debate on wind turbines. But the average listener says, this is Megan. Hi, Megan. May not have a vested interest in the outcome, apart from how much it's going to cost them and how it's going to affect their life. In fact, says Megan, people may be baffled by this conflict because both sides seem absolutely certain that they're right and anybody else must be wrong. And some people, frankly, aren't sure of who to believe, particularly when those who do have a vested interest in both sides of either, whether it's political power, pecuniary interest, NIMBYism, whatever it is, and that's not made obvious or transparent, says Megan. So I, for one, am a bit sick of people just arguing all the time about wind turbines. If we could just have the facts, that would be great. Thank you, Megan. That's me told. Here's a message in from Daphne in Mackle, who just said, will the cruise ships be able to visit our island after the government insists on wind turbines be planted in our waters and on the Isle of Man, as described on the national anthem? In fact, maybe we'll have to rewrite the national anthem. I'm sure they'll be able to negotiate around and navigate around the wind turbines. If they happen, when they happen, who knows? With regard to an island-wide phone ban in schools, it's a brilliant idea, says 603. I've seen a couple of near misses where children are so hooked on their phone, they just walk into the road without looking. Can you imagine what would happen if they happen to be hit by a vehicle? I agree with your callers. It seems the grass has been cut, but no trees. Blackberry Lane, Governor's Path trees are so overgrown you have to duck to get under. Whoever the farmer is out at Abbeylands, the back road seriously needs to cut their hedges back before there's a serious accident. Please don't blame the rain for them grown so quick, says Pat. Cut your hedges. Here's a note in from 014, just says, yes, Nigel Dean is still in Zimbabwe. Could you tell me what Ramsey commissioners, says Paul, plan is over overgrown gardens? They've sent a letter to a disabled gentleman in Bircham Avenue to cut his grass, which didn't need to be cut, but he was doing so. No cut may the council be was sorry, I'm losing this. All houses opposite his have completely overgrown gardens, as do the majority of commissioners' properties, plus roads all overgrown. It's a disgrace, says Paul, and yet they choose to write to one disabled pensioner. How does that work? And Chris with us now. Hi, Chris.
No, it's Andy.
Sorry, Chris.
B&B's fantastic summer sale ends this weekend. Make it a sensational summer with up to 25% off throughout the store. Beautiful sofas and suites, stunning kitchens, gorgeous beds and bedroom ranges from leading brands. With up to 3 years interest-free credit on purchases over £500 with the option of nothing to repay for 3 months. B&B Furniture's fantastic summer sale ends this weekend at Snugborough Trading Estate.
Ride in to H&H Motorcycles.
Hello, I'm Nathan Harrison. For motorcycle sales, service, repairs, tyres, suspension including upgrades or full long-term restorations, choose the team that builds race-winning bikes. H&H Motorcycles on South Quay Industrial Estate, Douglas.
Now stockists for Arai, Motul and RST. H&H Motorcycles. Your bike couldn't be in better hands.
Roses are blooming at Ramsey Garden Centre. And with a variety of hanging baskets, summer bedding, fruit and ornamental trees, plus a full range of garden essentials, there's never been a better time to visit Ramsey Garden Centre. Open 7 days a week.
The Tynwald Mills summer sale ends Sunday 28th of July with final reductions off selected lines in men's and ladies' fashion, homeware, kitchenware, gifts and kids' toys. Why not pop down to grab a great deal and get summer ready today?
Radio Caroline North broadcast from the MV Caroline in Ramsey Bay from 1964 to 1968. And across the first weekend in August, Ramsey's back in the 60s with vintage vehicles and live 60s music. And on Saturday, the second and evening of the illustrated history of Caroline North and South with historians Andy Wint and Ray Clark, when the original Caroline Bell will be displayed. Tickets for the evening are £10, available at manxradio.com, and all proceeds go to support the Ross Revenge Dry Dog Appeal charity. The Caroline North weekend is August the 2nd to 4th with Radio Caroline, Live at Home and Manx Radio. The Man in Line with Andy Wint.
We found Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andy. Good day to you. This is, please, the regular caller on wind farms who's against them, and it just highlighted again there about Australia, where it's there's a claim that Australia aren't using and moving away from wind farms, and somebody from Australia calls you and says, no, wrong. And if you recall, quite some time ago, this was also put out about the amount of concrete that was going to be used for the pylons, and I then fact-checked it, called in and told you what the figures were, and there was no apology or correction from that caller. And I'm wondering, please, just like Tynwald members or directors of companies, prior to anything, you have to declare an interest. And his interest is that he lives about 550 metres away from the proposed wind farm site, I believe. So please, when prior to this person being regularly introduced, is it not possible, please, Andy, that you can say this person has a vested interest because he lives within this 550 metres of the proposed site, so that everybody then knows where he's coming from?
So yes, Will.
As in his argument.
That certainly he brings that up. He's talked about that in the past. But and again, everybody's getting a bit battered with statistics and this. And obviously, as this is an opinion program, everybody's got a different opinion, and sometimes opinion sounds like fact.
Correct. But this is somebody who does have a very vested interest because they live within that proximity to the proposed site, and he doesn't always say that he has that vested interest. And yet, if you go to any meeting, like in Tynwald or somewhere, you have to declare whether you've got an interest or whether you're conflicted. And this clearly is that case. And this person, I believe, should be introduced as having a vested interest.
Okay. What's your opinion? What's your opinion about offshore and onshore?
Crack on and get it done.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks for calling today.
Thanks, Andy.
Good to hear
now.
from you. Sorry about the delay, by the way. 17 minutes before 1. Daphne dropped a note in just to say Chris Gregory is absolutely correct. That's Chris Gregory from Isle of Play talking about children's use of mobile phones. And Chris Gregory's point is a powerful point. Children are living in a virtual world. Because even if they're not on their phones, if they've got phones, smartphones, they're thinking about what will be on the phones and about who has said what and to whom. That's living in a virtual world. And that's sapping their energy and attention. And really that will have, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it will have some sort of impact. Fantastic news, says 068 here, that mobile phones are going to be banned at schools. Staring at phones damages the development of their long-distance vision and social skills, as well as the harmful content that they're exposed to. This is the first generation that will have been brought up with social media. So the way that social media affects people, again, it very much depends on the type of person who's absorbing it. Some people find social media just frippery, superficial, fluff, candy floss. Other people take it deadly seriously. So what do you do? Mr. Gregory is spot on, absolutely right. He's put into words very well. Social media is definitely not sociable. Get out, meet real people, interact, says 194. Liz, thank you, Liz. Didn't the old generation make ice cream from Kushug? What? Says, not that I recommend it, but if you try the yellow flowers, it tastes a bit like coconut. I think years ago it was fed to cattle. Is that right? Ragwort's poisonous, and horses and cattle can seriously damage their livers and kidneys if they eat it and can be fatal. But were the yellow flowers ever used to flavour ice cream? 134. That would be a first, wouldn't it? What's the Manx Radio WhatsApp number? Says 775 166 177. Same number as the message number. However, you need to put 07624 in front of it and then put us into your contacts. And then of course, that's social media. Oh, dear me. There are lots of scams around at the moment, and some people pretending to be Manx Telecom delete them immediately. Chains of emails being cancelled and many other, says John. Please be aware of that. This is this Amazon Prime scam that's going around at the moment. 376 says Daphne Kane has no power to ban phones. Well, she's Minister for Education, Sport and Culture, so presumably it can be made as part of school rules. It's not compulsory. It's not a human right to have a mobile phone in school. And certainly you could do what Bob Dylan's going to do. In the Bob Dylan concert, series of concerts in Britain later on this year, you're not allowed to take your phone in. Bob Dylan's banned camera phones from his concerts. Your mobile phone, if you go to a Bob Dylan concert, will be put inside a secure bag that will be sealed electronically. And that's it. You get it when you leave the Bob Dylan concert. Maybe they'll get some old Bob Dylan concert bags. Numerous email scammers concerning email accounts trying to look like Manx Telecom again, says 102. So do be aware, if you're a Manx Telecom user, that they may be out and about. I know people aren't taught to do maths, but do the maths on wind turbines and tell me that they're worth it instead of it saying it's free energy, says Des. Don't think anybody's ever said it's free energy. They're saying it's cheaper to run it. And again, Des, that's an opinion. So that person has that opinion, and we move on from there. Was Andrew calling from a wind farm? No, I think he was out and about somewhere. Just that. Try driving a truck around the Isle of Man, says Ross. Find yourself on the other side of the road due to trees encroaching onto the side and wing mirrors smashed. Can I claim for my broken wing mirrors, Ross? I don't think you can, Ross. I don't think... Oh, well, that was from somebody else. But is that true about the trees encroaching onto that? Just referring to your last caller, says Ian, regarding people's opinions, I'm coming around to the idea that I don't believe anybody or anything, quite frankly. I'll just stick to whatever I think I know. I do very much agree with children not being allowed phones in schools. There's no need to be constantly on a mobile device, says Ian. Thanks, Ian. And that's the point. I mean, lots of people get the wrong idea about Man in Line. Man in Line is an opinion programme, always has been. From when Alan Jackson started Man in Line back in the 70s, when Andy Mack did it, David Callister did it, I did, Stu Peters was on. It's an opinion programme. And there is one way to get your opinion heard, and that's to call, to email, to WhatsApp, or to message. And Diane said no phones in schools should apply to teachers. I have it on good authority that a teacher sat watching YouTube on his phone while sitting at his desk and told students to get on with their work. Thank you, Diane. I think your caller's got mixed up about the Cushing ice cream. Gorse flowers can be used to smell of coconut. Is that right? Patrick's on now. Hi, Patrick.
Good afternoon. Just a question. Who is responsible for the dismantling the cost of the wind farms when they're finished?
Nobody knows.
So the next generation, or the generation after that, are going to spend millions of pounds dismantling wind farms.
Well, it depends how long they last, really, because the technology has not been around that long. I don't think I don't think they're falling down nowadays. They were started, I think, back in the 1990s in America.
Well, I think the lifespan must be 40 years or something, apart from replacing the blades, which would cost an absolute fortune.
Well, in the end, we all know who's going to pay, Patrick.
The taxpayer.
Right, we're going to pay. I mean, if we use electricity, we're going to pay for it. That's all there is to it. It just depends. And we just hope that the government get it right.
Yes, that's the point. I hope they look into the cost of dismantling for the next generation.
I wonder. All right, thanks, Patrick.
Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Good to hear from you. So is it true gorse flowers can be used because gorse flowers smell of coconut? Davis said it's true. Gorse smells of coconut. Thanks also to Peter Kelly. Yes, Nigel Dean's going to be 77 this 29th of September this year. Time marches on. Thank you, Peter. Good to hear from you. So Nigel Dean, this was all prompted by a journalist pal of mine, Paul Rowley, who's from Crosby on Merseyside, or he'd say Crosby, Lancashire, who started his career at the Southport Visitor 50-odd years ago, and in his first week wrote about Nigel Dean. And I was prompted to find out, having mentioned Millie Robinson a few weeks ago, a la Millie Robinson winning the first Tour de France, the first feminine Tour de France, the women's Tour de France, and the fact that the Isle of Man, of course, not just Cav, started with some great cyclists. Nigel Dean was one of them. I agree with Andrew. People should state if they've got a vested interest when they call in. Many people peddle misinformed nonsense, says Joe. Get off the fence, Joe. Misinformed nonsense disguised as opinion when they speak of the majority. It's not the majority. The rest of us are in the majority. Yes, the caller about Cushers confusing the yellow flowers with gorse. So are the yellow... Can you flavour? Can we have gorse ice cream, I wonder? I wonder. Thanks also to my friend who just says... there's no doubt that solar works. I've invested, so you can say it works. Why doesn't the government invest and cover the buildings with it? That's WhatsApp 375. I can confirm gorse smells of coconut, says Chris in Laxey. Has anybody discussed what will be the cost of not installing a wind farm, the new Irish Sea interconnector and upgrade to the power station? Interesting. Who's going to pay for that? The Irish Sea interconnector from Preston, from Penworthy near Preston to around Groudle. It's not going to be Groudle Glen apparently, but in the Groudle area, because looking at the map, it appeared to land just below Groudle Glen Railway. I wouldn't imagine they'd be terribly happy about that. So who's going to pay for that? Is that Ørsted putting the money in for that? Or are we putting in the money in for that? Or is it coming off the money that Ørsted are going to be paying us to be putting a wind farm, that huge 1,000-foot-high wind farm, on our seabed? I think we need a bit of clarity, don't you? Howard's back. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Randy. It's just something you talked about the other day, and I meant to mention it. Millie Robinson, you just reminded me.
Oh, yes, Howland Robinson she was, wasn't she?
I'll stand corrected on this, if need be, but I think she lived in the little lodge house that was going into Kirby Mansion. You turn in off the Saddle Road just before you come to that little roundabout, and I think she used to live there. Because I've seen her cycling up that way and parking her bike at the lodge house years ago.
Well, I mean, from what I didn't know Millie, but obviously I've been told she was an absolute pocket rocket. She used to fly along.
Well, strange enough, that's son-in-law's nickname, the pocket rocket, Steve Jochen. Yeah, but yes, somebody else will probably say yes, no, or otherwise, but that's just somewhere where I'm certain she lived, in that little cottage, the lodge house, as they call it, going into the Kirby Mansion.
Yeah. And there's one, Millie Robinson, if she'd been alive nowadays, and again, if she'd been in cycling nowadays, just like Nigel Dean, would have been a star all over.
Yes.
I mean, Nigel Dean cycled in the Commonwealth Games.
Yep. Well, so does Steve. I've got his book here. It's out of print now. You can still pick it up from certain places. But it's the life, Steve Jochen, that is, his life story from when he was starting cycling up at Williston right up through to his present day, where he became a couple, maybe 3 times British champion. And he was, at that time, he was a version of Cav. He was the pocket rocket, as they called him. That was the nickname they put on him.
Just shows how times change. Obviously, Cav has made a very substantial living from all of this. And years ago, it was a different sport, different game, really. Well, same sport, just not as professional.
But at that time when Steve gave it up, the large companies that were backing it, I believe, because of controversy with the television companies, pulled out all the money, and there was a lot of people coming up through the cycling fraternity that suddenly found themselves out of work and out of the sport.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Howard.
Take care. Bye now.
Good to hear from you. I'm glad we're putting Millie Robinson back, and Steve Jochen for that matter, but Millie Robinson back on the map. She was sounds like a heck of a character, and as I mentioned, she then went into partnership with Norman Howell in the poster shop on Westmoreland Road. In fact, you can still see one of those ghost signs that says Howell and Robinson, Norman Howell and Millie Robinson.
The Man in Line. Daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio.
Hi, I'm David Todd and I want to wish Manx Radio a happy 60th birthday.
We make gorse flower wine, and it does smell... What? It does smell of coconut as the flowers are simmered. I've never heard of that. It's an absolute first. Gorse flower wine. Gorse has been used for cream soda drinks and ice cream. They have a tropical smell and flavour. This is a new industry. This is a new image for the Isle of Man. Queenies, Manx cats, and gorse ice cream. It's got to be, honestly. Can you imagine getting that on the cruise liners? The average span of windmills is 20 years, says Des. That's windmills, Des, but what about wind turbines? How long do wind turbines last? Abandoned engineering programme in 30 years' time, says Liz D. It'll be turbines left to rot. There's an idea for Channel 4. Sorry, no, it's more Channel 5, isn't it? Abandoned engineering. Ancient wind turbines. Solar power doesn't work at night, says Des. Well, I think you might have something there, Des. And it won't work in Norway from October to March either. Thank you, Patricia. Gorse flowers put into a pan, boiled with eggs to colour them for Easter. You got yellow eggs, cochineal for red ones. We did that 70 years ago. Gorse flowers in a pan with eggs. Don't forget Marie Purvis, says 610. Douglas Golf Ladies have a competition every year, the Millie Robinson Cup. Just thought I'd let you know, says Tony. That's it. Got to go back tomorrow. It's Friday tomorrow, nearly the weekend. Southern Show. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today.
WINT